All right. Hello there, YouTube, and our pre-show for these Rediscover the 80s podcasts. Thanks for tuning in, and sorry it's been a while as we always start out with these videos. but, it is life. This is a hobby, as we always say. But we do appreciate you guys coming back and joining us for a fun new Rediscovered podcast. This one we're going back and looking at the Filmation Ghostbusters, which will be fun as a part of our journey with that podcast. But good to have you back on, Bud, and chat with you. And it's been a while.
It's been a little bit, although we did actually have a recent podcast, albeit more like a special guest, which is kind of comical that I'm a special guest on another podcast. One of what, 8 that you do? I don't know anymore. I lost count.
Yeah, well, it's 2 channels mainly. They're obviously here on Rediscovered the 80s, and 3 channels.
See?
Agents of Mask, yeah.
Which is almost dusting right now.
Yes. And then the Retro Network is the latest venture, and we've been doing weekly podcasts over there. We're not doing any YouTube videos around that other than we are posting the audio. So if you'll find the Retro Network on YouTube and give it a subscribe, I'd appreciate it. But you'll hear Wyatt and I talk a little bit about summer vacation memories and so forth from our the last podcast there that we did. And that was fun. That was almost like a mini memory jogger, you'll say.
Yeah, actually, it was a very miniature, but I think about 20-ish minutes of a kind of phone call in that, we use Skype, but it was literally on the old smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for those that actually watch, I now have a smartphone, if you've been keeping tabs. That was last year, and I was very, 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 very reluctant to make that swap.
Yeah, it was very needed, though. I'm glad you did that, because now we can do little Skype calls and stuff like that.
Yes, but my phone still sits out in my car for, now almost 10 hours a day, so I don't even get to use half of it,
Well, yeah,
I mean, it's more productive at work that way.
I would be if I was restricted on everything that I can get to at work, but even with all the regular work I have to do. But anyway, yeah, that was fun. That was a mini episode, as we tend to be long-winded in our conversations, but it all worked out and squeezed together there nicely. Like I'm doing the hotline, I called it, on the Retro Network podcast. But that was fun. I'm anxious to get back into doing some of these shows, though, and doing a couple more memory joggers and going back and reviewing some of these TV shows and cartoons and movies. I still got that list, and I keep scrolling past some on my Amazon account, and I'm like, yeah, I want to get to that. And
yep.
But I'm going to wait until we can do it on this show. So we need to do more of these so I can just clear my queue.
I hear you.
So we're going to get into this podcast and tell you all about what their YouTube channel calls the original Ghostbusters. I thought that was interesting, but for most of what we know is as the Filmation Ghostbusters. We're going to talk about mainly the cartoon, the first 5 episodes, which is kind of a miniseries that kicked everything off, and then a little bit about the toys and the broadcast history, and we'll go through the 5 episodes and give our little take at the end on how everything turned out. 35 years later.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get into the show, the podcast. As I get a drink here, talk amongst yourselves.
Here's a topic. I missed that little bit. I was never much of the Saturday Night Live, but I like the little bits that you would share with me.
A driveway is neither a drive nor a way. Discuss. All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Rediscover the 80s podcast and episode number 5 of Rediscovered, our journey to review obscure and overlooked TV shows, movies, and cartoons from the 80s. I am one of your hosts, Jason, and with me on this journey is my bud Wyatt. How are you, sir?
Great. How are you?
I'm fine. Glad to be back in our little rediscovered saddles and riding on down the road towards obscurity.
That's exactly what it is. I don't know if I remembered much of this, but we'll get into the episode here in just a little bit.
Yeah, like you heard in the intro, we are talking about Filmation's Ghostbusters in this episode. And while it's not, I wouldn't call it necessarily obscure, I think it is overlooked just for the fact that what I would call the real Ghostbusters, the cartoon, and obviously the two films in the 80s, the overshadowed what Filmation created, and going back even into the 70s with this being a live action show.
Restate all that. You did your Max Headroom.
Crap.
Starting from the Real Ghostbusters.
Okay. And what I would call the real Ghostbusters and the animated series and the two films that were in the 80s and how it overshadowed the Filmation Ghostbusters. So we are going to go back and we're just going to take a little snippet of that 65 episode run. We're going to review the first 5 episodes, which was kind of a mini series that kicked off everything. And I don't know, why do you think, it is overlooked, but why do you think we kind of landed on this one? What was it about it maybe that piqued your interest into going back and rewatching?
I think that it was more overlooked. I'd call it almost obscure because it was dwarfed by the popularity of the what we would call the Real Ghostbusters. I think that's what they call the cartoon version, is called the Real Ghostbusters. Because you got the classic Ecto-1 and you got the foursome Ghostbusters going out, and then we have a cartoon that breaks out, then Ghostbusters 2. And it was kind of like this onslaught of Ghostbusters, and Ecto-1 and Slimer and that cast. And then you have this little guy over here with, 3 Ghostbusters and a transforming car. But okay, where did it go? It showed up on a cartoon. I don't recall if it was a Saturday morning cartoon, if it was one of those oddballs that happened to actually show up during the day on Nickelodeon or wherever. But it was just there, and then this just kind of like disappeared into the night, and you didn't hear about it again. So that's, I think, why we picked it, is because it was dwarfed from the other Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and we'll get into kind of what we remember about it, but that's probably the main reason, and it's like one of those memories of, I remember it, but I don't remember any kind of story. I remember a few of the characters, but not really their names. And it was just so overshadowed, and it was a syndicated show, so it wasn't on your Saturday mornings. I don't think it was even, it might not have been on like in the afternoons after school. It might have been like a Saturday afternoon or something. I don't know exactly when it was running or what it was running with. So we'll get into a little bit of its broadcast history and see if we can't remember exactly what was going on with it. But we'll go through just a little bit of our experience and memories of it. It debuted back in first run syndication in September of 1986. So this was about a year, I think, before. I'll have to look this up. I think it was about a year before the Real Ghostbusters cartoon hit, or maybe it was just before. But it was created by Filmation, like we mentioned, who did Masters of the Universe, Fat Albert, Brave Star, the Star Trek animated series. We all know and love most of those shows. Remember that style. It's He-Man, and you think of that style of the show. You can really see that as you're watching Ghostbusters. As far as my experience goes, I do remember watching some episodes back in the day. I think it might have been you or maybe our mutual friend that had the ghost buggy toy. And then I remembered the little transformation sequence that they have most every episode. Those are the main things that I remembered. What do you remember, I guess, or did you remember watching it at all back in the day?
I know that I watched it, and there was a part of me that liked it, kind of like our discussion about Mario and Sonic, which we like better at times. And I think it flip-flopped. But I liked it because of the transforming car. But I honestly, when I watched it, I was trying to recall, kind of did a brief, what do I remember of this show? Nothing. No, I was like complete blank. But the moment I started watching it, even the intro and all that, it's like it was like my mind turned on and goes, "Yep, I remember the transformation sequence. I remember everything." But I'm still dumbfounded about the car. I always thought they entered the car not from the top and being dropped in. For some reason in my head, I have this vision that they came out like a side door and got slid into the car. I don't know where that came from. Maybe I'm mixing up with some other cartoon back in the day. But that aside, like I said, before watching it, the only thing I remember seeing was the classic car, and then it transformed. After that, clueless.
Well, that's probably about what I remembered then. Just a few little details. Some I've probably got wrong as well about the show. And we're lucky though that it's available over there on YouTube. They have an official, they call it the Original Ghostbusters YouTube channel. And it's been nice to at least have access like that to it. There's a lot of shows back from the 80s now that have their own YouTube channel. The Smurfs. I'm trying to think of some other ones. I think there's a Voltron channel that shows episodes. So it's nice that these properties are releasing episodes to YouTube that you can watch. And it's not necessarily one of these real obscure shows that also maybe had some copyright problems and not able to get it up there and available to everybody, kind of in a easy fashion. So that's where we would recommend people go and rediscover the show for yourselves. Just go over there to YouTube. But we wanted to go and show the intro, and Wyatt's going to do that for us via the screen share, just so everybody can have eyes on it while we're going through the podcast here. So whenever you're ready there, bud, we'll take a look at the intro and that awesome theme song.
Let's go, Ghostbusters! Let's
And there we are. So there is the intro to the Ghostbusters from Filmation. And I'm going to kick it over to you that we can talk about the development a little bit of the show once you get back to your notes.
I was right there. I had to cough. Let's see. So Filmation Ghostbusters was based on a live-action Ghostbusters show from 1975, bumbling detective show targeted to kids and produced by Filmation.
Had you ever watched that?
No, and I wanted to before we did this, so I could actually speak to it.
Yeah, I have not watched it myself. I was curious. I didn't even think to run a search on YouTube to see if there might be some episodes over there. But
there is a one that I saw, and it's on the sidebar, you know, just like you get hooked on something and something. It was there. I saw like a live action. I have meant to go back to it and never did.
Okay.
But then when Columbia Pictures started producing the film Ghostbusters in 1984, it neglected the fact that Filmation had already produced a live-action comedy series with that same name in 1975. Columbia agreed to license the name from Filmation for $500,000 plus 1% of the profits. Animation rights were not included in the deal, which prompted the Real Ghostbusters based on the film and Filmation developing their series based on 1975 live-action show.
Yeah, I had read a little bit about that, and I don't know if there was a lawsuit involved or something, but it's interesting that they just went for it and didn't really acknowledge the old series. And I think maybe it did go to litigation or threatened litigation, and then they came up with this deal. But I read later on in that article that Lou Scheimer, who was the producer, creator, Filmation there, pretty much regretted not putting the animation rights in that deal and getting some money out of that as well. But that's how we got the two shows.
Yep. Then we go on. Ghostbusters was no exception of Filmation's budget trimming methods, using, among others, an extensive sequence where they got their equipment in the Ghostbuster buggy. In the episode featuring Dracula, Filmation used the model sheets and character design of Drac from the Groovy Ghoulies, and even used his clumsy bat transformation sequence, banging against the floor and ceiling, changing clumsily from vampire to bat.
Yeah, you think about He-Man had the transformation sequence every episode, and even if you watch like the Fat Albert specials, which I do each year, you can see the same kind of animations of the characters walking down the street. And Filmation, there was no secret that they used the same kind of sequences throughout the show and just changed backgrounds or whatever they needed to. But it worked to the fact that that was something that never bothered me as a kid. And just having that consistency, like we miss when we talk in our mask reviews about how they do the little introduction of the agents.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. It's something familiar each episode that you get to see. And I think it helped more than hurt that they used those same sequences.
Each episode of Filmation's Ghostbusters used a catchphrase, "Let's go Ghostbusters." Well, back, Voltron, I loved it. "Let's go Voltron Force." And then they would form. I actually liked that little, lack of a better term, cheering teamwork thing before they.
Right.
Sorry, I got an Al Bundy moment that just hit me. "Let's go Bundys," or something like that. Lastly, like almost all 1980s Filmation cartoons, each episode closes with a segment describing a particular lesson that can be learned from the events of the episode. Skelevision, sometimes accompanied by Belfry, is the character most often employed in this role. From time to time, Jake, Eddie Jr., or another protagonist would talk with Skelevision about the lesson. At least they made sense and correlated it, unlike our other entity, Mask, where it never correlated, maybe once or twice.
Yeah, it was few and far between. We didn't get the chance to see that in the mini series that we're covering tonight. At least I didn't catch lessons at the end of those, so it must have been after this that they started incorporating that. But you got that with He-Man. One of the characters always stopped, and this happened in this episode today, and this is why you should, do this or that. So, and it was part of that whole scheme. I call it a scheme, but the law that kind of passed to say, hey, these cartoons can be, 20-minute toy commercials, but you've got to show a little value in them. The main motivation can be to sell toys, but you need to show value in the episodes with these little PSAs that appeared from time to time in these cartoons. So, and Filmation did that with a lot of their shows. Well, going over to the broadcast history and home video history, like I said, it originally ran September to December in 1986. That was its first run, the 65 episodes. And just as a reference point, 65 is set up to run 5 days a week. So this would have had to have been either an afternoon show or something where you're going to get 5 episodes in a week. And then it would cycle. That's 13 weeks to complete the whole series. And then you could do that 4 times a year. So that's why the 65 is significant back in the day on these syndicated programs. But it did make it to VHS. There was there were 2 episode video cassettes produced by Celebrity Video in 1986 in the US. And then Video Gems did it for the UK from 87 to 91. And then we did get a DVD release, 2-volume DVDs. A 2-volume set back in 2007 by BCI Ink and Paint. Each episode was uncut, remastered, and in story continuity order. So it wasn't necessarily the order that you got in syndication. And then each set also featured extensive special features like interviews, commentary, image galleries, bonus episodes, and more. So unlike many of the BCI Filmation releases, with the exception of 2 episodes, the DVD set appears to have been sourced from the original prints, which is nice. So you're getting quality there with your DVD. As of 2009, however, these releases have been discontinued and are out of print. So this BCI company that originally released the DVD set did not it ceased operations, so we don't have these DVDs anymore. So if you have one, you're lucky. I did find some on Amazon, but the pricing was astronomical. So what you can find though on Amazon is a 2 DVD releases, each with 8 episodes, and this is through Universal Pictures Home Entertainment. When I was searching on Amazon just here last week, one was $8 and one was $5. So for $13, you can get 16 episodes on DVD if that's something you want to go out and buy. And then, like we said, the streaming is right over there on YouTube on the original Ghostbusters channel. And you can see, I'm pretty sure every episode is available over there. Plus they have 1-hour compilations. So I'm not sure if there's any rhyme or reason to the episodes they're pairing up for an hour, but you think about that, you're probably going to get about 3 episodes, and it could be just clips. I didn't go out there and watch one of the compilations, but it might be just clips strung together on a particular subject or character that appeared throughout the series. So that's the history and the history of the broad. That was the broadcast history and home video release history as well as Wyatt's coming back in. Must have had to attend to the little ones. Hello there. Welcome back, Cotter.
Sorry.
That's fine. I just buzzed through the broadcast and home video history there, so we're back over now to the merchandise. And
yeah, I figured you'd be hopefully get that through. Sorry, I got Paige to take my son to the bathroom.
Okay. Well, now we're up to the merchandise. I'll let Wyatt go through some of these, and I've got some visuals actually for us on the comic books, but we did get toys.
We did, which I didn't actually remember. You said you remember our mutual friend having. I don't remember knowing that it actually had toys.
Yeah.
But Shaper released the first set of toys in 1996. And we got the figures of Jake, Eddie, Tracy, Futura, Jessica, Belfry, Battarat.
Yeah, that was like a double. They were smaller figures, so they packaged them together.
Right. Primeval, Scared Stiff, Mysteria, Fangster, Haunter, and Fibface. And then for the vehicles and sets, we got the Ghost Buggy, Time Hopper, the Scare Scooter, Ghost Command, and Bone Trawler. So
like I said, I do remember somebody having the Ghost Buggy because I remember it could. I don't know if the nose you took out and put the other nose in. You know, when he goes like the time travel mode and starts flying. And I do remember the wheels and stuff. They have them those long extensions that you can turn them around and pull the wings out. Yeah, so I can't remember if that was our mutual friend or who exactly had the Ghost Buggy, but I was looking over there. There's a website. It might have been just like the Ghostbusters wiki that had pictures of a lot of these vehicles, and they had the full Ghost Command, which is the house, the headquarters of the Ghostbusters, and then the Bone Troller is the organ, the big set for Prime Evil. They looked really cool, and if I had been more into the show, I can definitely see me circling those in like the Sears Wish book, because they do look pretty awesome. But yeah, that was surprising that well, I guess not surprising, but it's nice that they did so many figures in just like one wave, because you think, well, we're going to do this series, we're ordering 65 episodes, we hope it's a hit, but maybe we'll just get like 5 or 6 figures to start, and maybe the Ghost Buggy or something. But it sounded like that they just kind of released everything in one kind of push, which I could be wrong about that, but they look pretty cool. And then the comics, I happen to have the comics. They were published by First Comics back in 1987, of course, based on the show. It was originally intended as a 6-issue series, but we only got 4 issues. The unpublished issues were actually available in Germany, some overseas. So the UK actually did numerous issues, and they reprinted them in like a hardcover annual for Filmation, the Filmation Ghostbusters annual back in '87. But I've got all 4. I'm going to show you here if I can. Can you see me, Wyatt?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I can't see myself, but I've got all 4 issues of the U.S. comics, and these are interesting. I go back and like I try to find comics that are a short run like this and try to collect them all. And I was thinking, well, maybe they based this on the miniseries or something. No, it's like their own little episodes in each one, but the unique thing that I don't see much in comics, they wanted kids to really interact with these. Oh, there's the Ghost Command. That looks cool. And I'll show you, like, if you'll kick it back over to me, they did like mazes and puzzle games and all kinds of stuff in these comics
Yeah.
to have the kids interact with them and interact with the characters. Uh, there was a maze there. There's like a cryptic. You gotta figure out the letters in the puzzle there according to a cipher. And then there's even, I think it's at the end. Yes, at the end of this book, they show you how to draw them, which was
Very
really
nice.
cool. So, and then at the very like last page, uh, or towards the back of these, they'll have you the little answer key. So it was neat. It was almost like, remember those highlights magazines back in the day
Yeah.
that you could. I always saw them at the like doctor's office, but they were more interactive and they had stories and little characters in there you could follow along. But yeah, man, you're showing a lot of the toys there. Man, that looks really
This isn't
good.
a yeah, this isn't a very crisp photo, but you can see uh, Primeval and the organ that he uses to transport through time and the ghost buggy. Here you were saying about a German um, entity. This is actually from the Netherlands. But here's the
Yeah.
house, the ghost command rather, and the buggy. I just saw someone's collection right here
Mm-hmm.
where you were saying you don't know if you popped off the head to for the airplane mode. Well, here it is. It looks like a shark on this side, but you got Tracy and the whole gang just sitting there. It's really cool what they came
Yeah.
up with.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated that they had this. I don't remember our mutual friend Leaf having this.
Yeah. Well, then maybe it was somebody else that I knew that was over at their house and got to check it out. But yeah, very colorful. A lot of classic characters with the kind of a new spin on them. As you're watching this, you got the like almost the classic Universal monsters, the werewolf character, the mummy character, and they put their own spin on
Right.
them. So let's kind of go through like the synopsis of the show. Basically, the plot, the origin story is what we watched, and then we'll go through the characters too, and then we'll get into the mini series itself. So tell us a little bit about the plot there.
We got Jake Kong Jr. and Eddie Spencer Jr. are the sons of the original Ghostbusters from the live action series of the same name. Tracy the gorilla worked with their fathers. Their headquarters, termed Ghost Command, is located in a haunted mansion nestled between a number of tall skyscrapers, which resemble the World Trade Center's Twin Towers in New York City, which I actually didn't make that out, but okay. I just
Yeah.
saw lots of big buildings. It's kind of like what's the movie? It was a cartoon back in the day that did the same thing. They were trying to bulldoze the house out. Uh,
Gotcha. Yeah.
anyway, they are supported by a number of secondary characters, including Antabone, uh, a talking a talking skull phone. I thought his name was Answer Phone. Sorry. Skelevision, which was a talking skeleton television. Belfry, a pink talking bat, and Ghost Buggy, their talking ghost car. They occasionally enlist the aid of Futura, a time traveling Ghostbuster from the future, and Jessica Ray, a local TV news reporter, which Jake seems to have a little fling with.
Yes. Well, he was kind of mushy there with Futura as well on our episode. So
Very true.
Jake is a player.
Together, they have dedicated themselves to ridding the world of the evil ghost wizard Prime Evil and his cast of henchmen. Prime Evil's headquarters, termed Haunt Quarters, which resembles the British Houses of Parliament, complete with a Big Ben-esque clock tower, is located in the fifth dimension. In a typical episode, Primeval uses his magical powers to open up a wormhole to enable one or more of his henchmen to complete a particular scheme that serves to help him take over the world. Sounds familiar.
Yep, kind of typical.
famous.
I did
Sorry,
like
but
the did like the headquarters, the haunt quarters, I'll say, and just that whole setup and his the organ there. I can't remember what we called it now, but I don't know. I just like that character and how they infused a little bit of robot and a classic kind of monster all together in one, and made that the bone troller. That's what I think you call the organ.
yeah,
Um, anyway, yeah, I don't know. I just like the design and gave it that kind of medieval almost impression. I guess is what they were kind of going for, but very fun design.
it was. I completely forgot who he was. Famous guest star ghosts and monsters that appeared on this show include Count Dracula, who is actually a vampire, and the Headless Horseman, who also appeared in an episode of The Real Ghostbusters, written by Jean-Marc Lofficier's wife, Randy Lofficier.
I don't
I'm
know why
sorry, I
that was
almost
in
said Lucifer. That just sorry.
it.
Like almost all 1980s Filmation cartoons, each episode closes with a safety message, basically, or lessons learned, like we said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And
We just kind of went through all that, so you
yeah, I
can kind
saw
of
that.
skip.
So that leads us on to our cast and characters, which was actually pretty cool. And I had to do some research because I thought I recognized a few voices.
Yes, yeah, I definitely did, and obviously Filmation, you're going to get some of those same voices that were on He-Man and even Fat Albert and some of the other ones. But we'll start off with Jake. He's Jake Kong Jr., son of the original Ghostbuster, Jake Kong, and he's the kind of the leader of the Ghostbusters, somewhat like his father was in the episodes. I think they were more of a team, the dads. Um, he's often responsible for coming up with ideas to solve the difficult ghost busting problems, and his nose twitches when ghosts are nearby. I thought that was a fun little thing.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so I don't know where that came in. Maybe it must have been an episode. He is voiced by Pat Fraley. Now, Pat Fraley, he was the voice probably best known for several on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He was Krang, he was Casey Jones, and Baxter Stockman on the original animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. So I did hear a little bit of that in there from time
Mm-hmm.
to time, and he does some other characters that we'll get to as well, where I heard his voice more related to the characters on the Turtles.
Then we got Eddie Spencer Jr. He is the son of the original Eddie Spencer from the Ghostbusters, obviously. Eddie is often frightened by ghosts, and though he means well, he is a bit of a klutz and frequently fumbles things up. He is voiced by the voice of Optimus Prime, Peter Cullen, which is actually hilarious. I showed this episode to my son, the first one, and he
Uh-huh.
laughed hilariously when they did the changing scene. You hear Peter Cullen just, he just laughed hilariously. I'm like, this is actually good. And it's fun to see. I mean, we've talked to voice actors obviously now.
Yeah.
It's fun to see the dynamics of people. You got Optimus Prime, the leader. He also voices Ironhide, basically the sidearm
Yeah.
of Optimus. But then you see him voicing a bumbling character that has basically almost no clue.
Yeah.
That's just cool. And obviously they're reading a script and changing their voice slightly, but it's still cool nonetheless to see them do that changeroo.
Yeah, and if you would have, told me beforehand or asked me beforehand who I thought the voice was, I would not have guessed
No,
Peter Cullen
no.
for Eddie. So this is really, like you said, it's an outreach from what he did in Transformers, not just in the character itself, but just the voice style. And you always think of Peter Cullen, you think of Optimus Prime and that bold voice. So him doing something like this, where he's scared and frightened, and you hear those higher reflections, it's hard to pick him out, I think. So
Mhm.
that was a surprise when I read that for the first time. And then we got Tracy the Gorilla. He was in the original live action show. Tracy is extremely smart and credited with inventing all of the ghost busting gadgets and would often construct one to help get out of a bad situation. Tracy is also very powerful and uses his strength to get out of tight spots. And then, unlike the live action series, where he only wore various hats, in this series he wears a fedora. He gets the backpack and the shorts, almost like the similar style to the Ghostbusters uniforms.
Right.
And he's voiced by Lou Scheimer. Lou Scheimer, obviously, like I said, he's kind of the godfather of Filmation. He, you probably recognize him as Dumb Donald
Yep.
and Fat Albert. That was he did some voices. He wasn't usually one of the main characters in these shows, but he did contribute some voice work. So
Well, it was interesting. I was in the third episode when it dawned on me because the intro, in a way, with him going was kind of lame. I realize it's part of the characters and whatever, but I'm like, this is just retarded. And then I see why it kind of clicked on the third episode, the second or third intro. You see him, Tracy, and then you see the credits for Lou, and he's the only one that has the signed thing. I'm like, and I had to dig and saw the credits at the end that he was the voice of it. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. Why? Okay.
Yeah.
And then we got Belfry, who is a pink-colored bat who can emit a sonic scream. Belfry calls it the Belfry Blast. He is sometimes tagged along on ghostbusting adventures, but often he is told it could be too dangerous. Belfry has three cousins: a southern bat named Beauregard, a Brooklyn bat named Rafter, and an English bat named Sven.
Eves, I don't know.
Sure, I'll
Yeah.
go with that. Eves.
Ives, yeah.
We are not of the English British speaking. I'm sorry. I still remember to this day, probably a haunting thing. In high school, saying "I," but when you see it in the word, it's AI. Yay. Oh, what is it? Anyway, Belfry resembles Piglet from Winnie the Pooh, but is voiced by Susan Blue, best known as being RC from the Transformers. And I picked her voice out right away when she started talking as Belfry.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's RC. Couldn't remember the person, but I remember, hey, that's RC.
Yeah. Her voice kind of sticks out to me as some of the kids and the younger characters on He-Man.
Yeah.
When I hear her voice. So I know she contributed over there as well. And she is also Futura, who is a alluring purple-skinned woman from the future who is a Ghostbuster in her own time. Futura has a flying scooter named the Time Hopper and can predict what is going to happen in the present time, as well as she can be telekinetic. She also seems to have a crush on Jake, which we saw in our episodes, often complimenting him on how he looks and periodically kissing him, much to his delight. And in her own original design, Futura was an African American with long, light brown hair. So I wonder why they made that change. But like I said, it was Susan Blue who did Futura.
She also did Jessica Ray, the TV news reporter, which I recognized all three voices.
Yep.
It's funny how some of them don't change very much. Just saying. Sorry. She often reports on the events the Ghostbusters will go investigate and sometimes accompanies them. Jake seems to have a crush on her, and she for him. She was originally had blonde hair in her initial design, which she now has more of I call it an auburn, almost a reddish brown hair.
Yeah. There's a lot of elements in this show. I mean, you would think of that as maybe a take on what would be, well, I guess it would be before that time, what was April on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So yeah, there's some of these elements in there that makes this show a different kind of mix of characters. Then we have Madam Y. who is a fortune-telling Roma woman who speaks in a European accent, resides in a wagon, and occasionally assists the Ghostbusters. And she was voiced by Linda Gary. Now, Linda Gary, we would definitely know. She was Tila, Evelyn, and the Sorceress in Masters of the Universe. I was reading about her when I was going over there. I saw that she died young. I think she had brain cancer or something like that. Very sad. Did not get a chance to, make this truly a career. But just hearing her voices and all these, you think it would have been a long one, past Filmation and all of that back in the 80s, that she could have had a longer career. So,
yep. And then we have the Ghost Buggy, or GB, who is the Ghostbusters Southern accent talking car that can assume many forms of transportation, including a train complete with graffiti on the sides. I don't remember seeing that. It must have been a
we
later
didn't see
episode.
that. Yeah, did not see that in the first one.
Well, I've actually gone through. I think it was up to episode 20 or something.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I actually got it hooked, and then along with the ability to travel through time. Ghost Buggy is often found sleeping in Ghost Command's garage and gets annoyed when the Ghostbusters land on him. His face is the ghost shown in the series logo, voiced by Pat Fraley.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that it's funny, you go through that whole sequence, and usually the difference is once they get to Ghost Buggy, and he will come up with some little quip there when they land on top of him and expect him to get going, disturbing his nap.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's see. I'm gonna skip that one just because we didn't talk about. Well, I guess we can go on. Also in the series is Corky, which is Jessica's young nephew. He wears an orange shirt with the Ghostbusters logo on it. He was voiced by Erica Scheimer, who is Lou's daughter, and she did several supporting voices, mainly in the Masters of the Universe.
Then we got Ansabone, is Ghost Command's talking skull phone when the Ghostbusters get a call for help. Ansabone will usually make it hard for them to answer the phone and will give the caller a sarcastic message. Example, "Hey, you've reached the Ghostbusters and you're in luck. They're not here." Or whatever else comes to mind. That was also voiced by Lou Scheimer.
Yeah. That was a fun little running gag.
I liked it.
Yeah, it was just something that you're trying to help somebody, but yet your own equipment's working against you. And then speaking of Lou Scheimer, he also did Skelevision, who was the talking skeleton television. And Skelevision often shows the Ghostbusters the problem that they will have to face, and is very often the one who talks about the lesson that can be learned at the end of each episode. In this case, he was showing them Primeval and what he was doing while they were trying to figure out the puzzle of these stones that they had to put together. So it seems that he could look into the future, the past, wherever he needed to, which is fun.
Then we got Skelevator, is Ghost Command's bony elevator with a mind of its own. Primary transport for the Ghostbusters to change into their ghost-busting attire. A portable version is used when the Ghostbusters are on location while tracking ghosts, and it's voiced by Erica Scheimer. I haven't got to the portable unit yet.
Yeah, she also did the shot clock, which is Ghost Command's talking cuckoo clock. I don't think we saw that one. But I'll jump on to Merlin here, who was part of the miniseries, of course, the famed wizard of King Arthur's era, who had previously crossed paths with Primeval. He was voiced by Alan Oppenheimer, who would go on to actually do Merlin in another show, The Legend of Prince Valiant, but we know him as Skeletor from Masters of the Universe. And he had a little apprentice named Fuddy in our miniseries.
Right, and that is Merlin's apprentice, like you said. When the full moon is out, Jake is able to chant and call him for help by casting a magic spell, which rarely works the way it's supposed to. Similar to Orko from He-Man, though he sounds like Cal from She-Ra. And he is voiced by Lou Scheimer. He has a lot of
Yep.
voices in this. I didn't realize he voiced a lot.
Right. We just got a few more for you. We've got the fathers, Jake and Eddie, that were in our miniseries. They were the original Ghostbusters, and they are voiced as the same actors as Jake and Eddie, Pat Fraley and Peter Cullen, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
And there was enough of a change there. Now, this seemed to be like Peter Cullen's regular voice when he did Eddie Sr.
Yeah.
That I did pick up on more than when it was just the sons,
Right.
So I thought they did a pretty good job with the difference here.
Then we got Skelescope, which is Ghost Command's talking telescope, voiced by Pat Fraley. And finally, Time Hopper, who is Futura's hover scooter. GB has a crush on her, but she doesn't feel the same. And she's voiced by Susan Blue.
Yeah, we saw that a few times throughout the miniseries that GB is always not far behind the Time Hopper. So now let's get over to the villains, which were really fun. Of course, like we talked about, Primeval. He's the primary villain. He's a wizard. He always appears to be a robot with like an android-like human skull and then garbed with his red robe. His name is a pun of the words primeval or something. I don't know. Primeval has many evil powers, including the ability to shoot energy bolts from his fingers. His minions often find themselves getting zapped when they do not exceed in stopping the ghost busters. I can't get over that. Every time he says that, he's just frustrated. He encounters the Ghostbusters in the first episode. However, they outsmarted him and they imprisoned him for 100 years until he escaped. We'll get into that as we get into the episodes here. But yeah, he has a hard time saying Ghostbusters, and he calls them Ghost Blisters, Ghost Buzzards, Ghost Brats, Ghost Bozos, Busting Goons, and Bunglers. His original design resembled more of Mumra from the Thundercats. And he was voiced also by Alan Oppenheimer, who we know as Skeletor. So it did feel a lot like Skeletor with the addition to the that he does when he's voicing the character. But I liked him. I thought it was like I said, it's just a fun character design.
Yeah, I like it.
And he is that Skeletor of this crew of villains, definitely.
Yeah. Now that takes us to Bratarat, a pot-bellied, legless flying rat with an elongated nose, a lizard-like body, and an acute squint in one eye. He has no magic powers other than levitation since he has no wings. Serves as Primeval's right hand and tattletale. His name is loosely based on Burt Bacharach, and is also is that how? Okay.
Yeah.
And is also a master keyboard player, voiced by Peter Cullen, and that's shocking. I mean, I did look at the cast before this, but to hear him go, "Yeah, boss, yeah," I just can't see it.
Yeah, this was fun just hearing all the different voices for Peter Cullen, because he didn't get that, like I said, in his other series. Up next, one of the main villains you'll see is Scared Stiff, a robot skeleton, and he's, I guess, similar to C-3PO if you think about it. Easily frightened, often zapped to pieces by Primeval, or falls apart on the count of his own fright. And I guess the pilot appearance, he was a little stockier than, I guess, in the regular series, but he was a fun character voiced by Pat Fraley.
We got Fangster next. He is a werewolf from the future who wears high-top gym shoes and voiced by Alan Oppenheimer in a style similar to Cringer from He-Man.
I did hear that. And then we got Haunter, who is the civilized hunter of haunted prey. He resembles like a safari hunter with an English accent. His vocal nuance exaggerates the letter R for the letter W, just like they do in the English terminology. The dematerializer is the dematerializer, whatever. He often gets caught in trouble for calling Primeval old boy or old bean or other English endearments. According to the DVD guidebook, the hunter's speech, mannerisms, and appearance are based on a actor Terry Thomas. So you'll have to check that one out.
Mm-hmm.
He's he's got the monocle, that's traditional kind of English safari hunter. Probably Primeval's most loyal, as he is never sided with what is Big Evil? Anyway,
Oh, that Big Evil. I've seen him. He's like a. I think he's a super leader above Primeval that later
okay.
comes out. Yeah.
So yeah, that was also voiced by Peter Cullen. So you got a Peter Cullen with an English accent.
Then we have Mysteria, Mistress of Mists. Resembles Morticia from the Addams Family, wearing a long black hairstyle. She has power over mist and is known for calling people darling. She is also known for her extreme vanity. Originally had a human appearance and a long red dress. She is voiced by Linda Gary in a manner similar to Evil Lynn from He-Man.
Mm-hmm. Definitely heard that. We got Sir Trancelot, a bad knight to one and all. He's like a skeleton knight of the round table, you'll say. He's got that old school like mustache, and he rides a skeleton horse named Frightmare. Wields the trance lance that fires beams that induce sleep. And his name is obviously a reference to Sir Lancelot.
Mm-hmm.
Voiced by Lou Scheimer.
And then we have Apparitia, Spirit Sorceress Supreme. Sorry, I had a transformer going in my head. Vampish sorceress who talks like Mae West, and like her name implies, she can conjure up all sorts of apparitions. She wears a sleeveless red dress with long green hair, thus giving her a similar look to Eris, the Greek goddess of discord, and she is voiced by Linda Gary.
Yeah. Definitely that Mae West impression. Ooh, come up and see me sometime, All right. Well, that was the kind of cast of characters and their voice actors. Even before we get into our final verdict here, I thought they did a great job. I thought the voices were really fun. So let's get into the episodes. Like I said, we did the first 5 episodes. They were titled "I'll Be a Son of a Ghostbuster." Episode 2 was "Frights of the Round Table." 3 was "No Pharaoh at All." Then "The Secrets of Mastodon Valley," and finally "The Ones Who Saved the Future." So we get this long kind of tale. Time travel is involved, going back and forth, and like we, hinted at earlier, the whole plot revolves around the sons rescuing the fathers, and they have this little meetup with Primeval in the beginning, and they trick them into this like cave, and there's a safe in there. I didn't understand this whole setup.
No.
There's a cave in the middle of nowhere, and it's got a safe in there that you can lock. But anyway, so they trick him. He's in there for 100 years. He comes out. Of course, the Ghostbusters are dead and gone by then. But he decides to go back into the past to essentially get even with them. And they do that by kidnapping the dads as they sleep, and then they hide them. But there's these little clues left behind in the form of stones that they have to gather, get the message from these stones, kind of solve the riddle and find where their dads are being held up. But I don't know what I guess just give me your first impression of the first episode and the origin story and how they kick things off.
Well, being children of the 80s, it's kind of funny that he wanted to go back to 1980s. I'm just saying. We
Mm-hmm.
keep saying we want to go back to the 80s, and this guy, cartoon character, fictional, wanted to go back there. But he wanted to do it to get back at the original Ghostbusters instead of, you know, just starting fresh, starting new, and here we go. He wanted to go back to square it up. So I guess to prevent
Yeah.
future problems. But it was actually impressive. I liked it. The safe, the vault, whatever in the middle of the sewers. I don't know where they were. It was odd. Um, but a lot of things were odd in the 80s. I mean, how many times have we nitpicked Masscast to the T with all their episodes?
Yeah.
Um, the animation I liked. I know that they recycled a lot, but I liked the detail. They actually had, if you paid attention, the eyes blinked. They
Mm-hmm.
actually blinked the character eyes, where most cartoons in the 80s didn't blink. If they did, it was very minimal. They tried to keep it up. Um, they did a lot of good, smooth transitions when especially Jake was turning to look at something. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it was just impressive. I was really, I was having to relearn the cartoon
Yeah.
because I completely spaced everything but the car. But once I saw them, especially when they got into their, let's go Ghostbusters and went up to the
Mm-hmm.
changeroo, completely everything came back. I remembered that they had to go on the conveyor. I remember them
Uh-huh.
uh, getting thrown into the little spider web that changed them around,
Yeah.
um, or
And
well, stripped them rather.
yeah, Eddie being all shy there.
Yeah, and then getting the boot, literally.
Yeah.
Uh, that all came right back to me. It was, I don't know, it was almost Christmas all over again in a way. It was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it was fun. The story starts out with the sons learning the family trade of ghost busting from the dads. I thought that was just fun in it of itself. They're
Mhm.
passing on to the next generation, and I'm assuming the original show didn't have the sons; it was just the dad. So to kind of pass the torch from the 70s show here in the 80s to the animated show, I thought that was just a fun transition to somebody that may or may not have watched the original show. But the first episode, just what I kind of took away was they packed a lot into just that first 20
Mhm.
minutes of you're getting to see the environment. Well, you get to see some of the gadgets to start off, and then you get to go to Ghost Command. You meet all the characters there, the telephone and the television and the other little nuances around there. And then you get to see, well, it was funny that they found the manual, right? And they said, I think at one time they had never been opened. So whatever the dads knew, I guess they just kind of learned on their own or something. But
Right.
they had this whole manual, and that's when they found the transformation room and the ghost buggy and all this stuff. So, uh, and I guess maybe even discovering time travel. But I thought that was maybe a little bit of a stretch that the dads didn't know that there was a ghost buggy in the garage.
That's what I thought when they're saying, "Oh, I bet Dad doesn't even know about this." Well,
Yeah.
oh, how do they not know about it? They're supposed to be there. So
Right.
then, where did the ghost buggy come from? If they didn't know it was there, how long? And he's pissed off that he got woken up at when Tracy jumps in.
Well,
So
yeah, and I understand that Tracy is not like just speak normal English. He's got his own little vocabulary and he knows a few words here and there. Okie
right,
dokie and no okie dokie. But yeah, if he invented everything, he should have somehow showed them everything that he came
that's
up
it.
with. But that's kind of petty, and you wouldn't really pick up on that as a kid. But I just thought that there was a bunch that they really uncovered and just showing off everything and even the characters, Primeval and then the his crew all came up in that first
Mhm.
episode. So it was fun. And then the whole time travel to get the, pieces of the puzzle was basically the rest of the episodes. They go back to the medieval time with Camelot and King Arthur to take on Sir Trancelot, who was, kind of set out by Primeval to. I think he must have. I think he gave him a clue, or he had part of the tablet or something.
Yeah, he did.
I'm trying to remember, but yeah, I did. I did find that funny with a couple of times when Primeval's like, "We're gonna have to go back to the 1980s and do this and that." I was like, "Yeah, you guys have been watching Back to the Future, haven't you, or something?" But yeah, it was so it was fun just going to some of these locations that they're at Stonehenge in the second episode here to meet up with King Arthur, and that's where they finally meet up with the with Merlin and his little buddy there that give him the special power to use at a full moon. I thought that was kind of weird. Can only use it during a full moon. Well, lucky it's a full moon when we get to use it in the last episode. But it was fun. Like he was, learning the ropes, and he steals or borrows the his sword, Excalibur.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a lesson that they did infuse into the story. It wasn't necessarily at the end of the show and reflecting back, but they told once he screwed up the sword, and I can't remember how they got it back. They managed to straighten it out, They get him back and they make him tell the truth to King Arthur, and that's when he makes him a full-fledged wizard.
Right.
So that was fun. And then from there we went to Egypt in the third episode.
That's right. No Pharaoh at all. That's where we basically get to enter a castle, and we get the ghost buggy, or GB wants to avoid ghosts. And then we get Trancelot introduces them to his pet Sparky the dragon. That was an interesting character.
Yeah, I recognized the sounds. Those are the same kind of sounds they use for all the creatures in Masters of the Universe.
Oh yeah.
And that hit me right away.
Fuddy the wizard tries to use a sword, but it doesn't work. And then we got Jake, who uses GB's water cannon to save them all, which is interesting. You'd think they used the dematerializer or something, but they used the water cannon.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was fun that the Ghost Buggy has several different features other than just going back and forth between the time travel mode and the regular buggy.
That's it. Then Jake uses the GB to lance Trancelot and get the tablet. Then Tracy fixes a sword, and Jake makes him fess up. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I this is these are my notes here. So,
it's been a little bit. I didn't have everything itemized for my note. It was more like what I liked about it, I guess.
Yeah, well, I was just kind of going through the episode just to remember everything, but yeah, what I meant by that was just with the wizard making him fess up to King Arthur there at the end, and then we get over to Egypt as this was part of it too. Tracy's the inventor of all the gadgets and stuff, and he invented or came up with this little gadget to help them track the tablet pieces. And so that's how they're knowing. Somehow it's indicating it's in these places. It almost seemed like Jake, and this was kind of one of the downsides to the episode, but Jake seemed to be all knowing. He was like, "Oh, the next piece is in Egypt, or the next piece is in wherever, the beginning of civilization." But there was really never any explanation on how he came up with all these locations, and I guess it was like Tracy's little tablet tracer or whatever he came up with there. But that was kind of a stretch, I guess, to tie the show together.
Kind of is, because what type of electronic anything, magnetism or anything that would have been in those tablets? Obviously, we're reaching because we're
Right.
adults. As a kid, we'd probably be like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. They can find the pieces." You know?
Yeah.
But what I remember. It was a good episode, but there were minor things like you said. You have
Hmm.
Tracy finding the tablets, the sword being fixed. I tomato
Yeah.
tomato, type of thing. Um, but I guess that moves us on to the next
Yeah.
episode.
So yeah, we're in. So from Egypt, there, they had that little uh, fun little path through the pyramid. There, Eddie finds that secret room. And he puts on this little pharaoh uh, costume, and then the locals think he's like this some pharaoh, and a story that is a pretty big trope through cartoons back in the 80s. This is where they meet up with Primeval's clan, Apparitia, and Airhead, who is the mummy. Uh, that was, I don't know. The mummy character was probably my least favorite of of them all. He's trying to make jokes, and then he's like, "Oh, Airhead, make joke," you know. Uh, that was I don't know. That was just a weird character to me. But they captured Tracy. This was interesting. The cliffhanger where they are trying to turn him into like a 3,000-year-old mummy at the end, and he's starting to age.
Mm-hmm.
And Apparitia puts this like spell on him or something. I can't remember exactly, but that was just a fun little cliffhanger right there, where Tracy's starting to get all gray and
Yeah.
white, and they have to come in, and Jake and Futura, they trick Airhead and they rescue Tracy and they, as gets out of that room where she cast that spell, then he goes back to his normal age. But they end up skiing down the pyramid there, and they find Eddie, and uh, they get the Sphinx like comes to life through this like magic scepter to get the ghosts to leave them. They get the other piece of the tablet, and they head back to the beginning of time, I think is what they say. The Primeval is watching and tells them that they're going to be sorry they meet up with the ghost of the missing link. It was this weird character, almost like an ogre, like oversized ogre with different. I think it was like part animal, part human, whatever. Um, it was like I don't know. It was like I said, it was like an ogre, and Tracy and uh, the ghost buggy, they run into this primitive caveman. They call him Unga. Tracy and him are talking back and forth. I thought that was funny that they kind of
Yeah.
speak their same language. How they did that, but this was a fun episode. They encountered dinosaur ghosts, and the pterodactyl is the one that grabs them, and they take him back to the missing links like uh, area there of the world, and he puts them in this like cave jail, I guess you could say, where it's surrounded by this lava of river of lava, and they're kind of trapped in there, and they don't have their backpacks. He takes their backpacks off. So Tracy's without all of his gadgets, and they're kind of stuck there as that episode ends, and we get into the last episode, which kind of wraps everything back up.
Right. And it's entitled "The Ones Who Saved the Future." And that's where we see Unga, who is on the very first bicycle. He
That
comes to the rescue. That
was a
was
little
a crude, but
ridiculous.
actually kind of comical bike. I couldn't help but think of like Fred or Barney riding that to work or something.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But anyway, he gets their backpacks returned, and then we see Tracy using balloons for them to travel across the lava river. That was actually a pretty cool
Yeah.
little invention.
Of all the things to have in your backpack, I'll just blow up these balloons and we'll sail away.
That's it. And then we have Tracy saving Unga from the missing link, and Jake using the Excalibur to destroy a mountain on top of the missing link.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that was fun, and they incorporated that. That's how the Excalibur got into the rock that King Arthur discovers, centuries later.
Right. Here's where I thought was kind of, I guess, iffy. But anyway, we got Primeval choosing to take Haunt Quarters to attack them. So it's like the big, huge battleship now to go
Yeah.
get to the Ghostbusters. And then we have Primeval, his ghosts appear with the headquarters and capture all the Ghostbusters. And then
Yeah,
he
that
feels
was
that
pretty
he has the
easy.
last piece of the tablet.
All the whole time he had it. Yeah.
Right.
It was funny how they, and I understand what they're doing here with this last episode. They're trying to create the drama and get the Ghostbusters captured, but finally all of his henchmen are doing what they were told to do and capturing them pretty easily,
Right. It was actually pretty cool, pretty, I guess, interesting, but it was, I guess, for a moment, even though it's only 22 minutes, for a moment, I'm thinking, well, geez, they could have ended the whole series by this little episode where they
Yeah.
capture all the Ghostbusters. But
It was convenient. We'll put it that way. It was
yeah,
very convenient in the way that they got them and put them all together. And why don't they just go after them to begin with instead of this whole tablet shenanigans?
right. And the funny part is he finds this tablet that's been in the cave where he was at 100 years. So I guess if you have 100 years to walk around a cell, essentially, eventually you might find something.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't understand that either. I guess it was him that put the tablet together, but I don't know. It seemed a little eccentric to do all of that just to get him to where they're just going to go back and capture him. Why
right.
don't you just do that, eliminate the whole tablet thing, and just go back and do what you're trying to do?
That's it.
Anyway.
But nonetheless, Primeval planned to turn them into ghosts with the Bone Troller. But
Hmm.
Jake calls upon Fuddy, but turns him invisible instead of invincible. And then Jake sneaks over to the Bone Troller and tries to reverse the ghost effects. And then he grabs the last piece and rigs the Bone Troller to go to the future. And that's where we have Jake also figuring out that the tablet and the shape in the cave they were locked in there with Primeval.
Yeah.
Uh,
This was probably my favorite part, um, other than the first episode with all, just discovering everything and meeting all the characters. But at the end here, when the Ghostbusters get back to what they're doing and start busting all of the ghosts and
mm-hmm.
showing off all of the gadgets that they have. And there was one with like a rope. There's the gummer that shoots
Yep.
the sticky stuff. It's almost like uh, hunting equipment, and then they've got the dematerializer there. So once they capture them in the trap, the gum or the rope or whatever, they use the dematerializer to zap them to
Mm-hmm.
the fifth dimension.
That's it.
So yeah, and it was fun kind of wrapping it up at the end too, because that was what they set in the first episode with the reporter girl coming by and not believing in ghosts, and they set up this interview for them to bust a ghost on TV, and she kind of brushes it off. It's not going to happen, and that actually finished that off at the end of the fifth episode here, busting scared stiff on live TV.
Which all it does, he just breaks apart and then gets vanished.
Right, right. So, what was some of your favorite and maybe least favorite characters as you're watching this miniseries?
Well, I'm the car guy, so I liked GB, but out of the actual characters, I actually had fun with Jake because he seemed to have the I guess, wherewithal, the leadership, even though they're new, he really kind of took the leadership role and went with it. I realized as a cartoon,
Yeah.
just the way it was written, I thought it was actually kind of cool. I guess the least favorite character, um, I kind of thought Bratterat was freaking annoying because he's
Oh
always,
yeah.
hey boss, that whole,
Yeah.
I mean, it just got to me. Just the whole annoying, especially at the beginning. It was kind of the clue, the very first episode when he gets trapped in there. I'm gonna be here. Yeah, I got someone to talk to. Oh no. No.
Yeah, they set him up right
Yep.
in in doing that. He's kind of the annoying little sidekick, the Igor, to Dr. Frankenstein
Right.
kind of a thing. But uh yeah, I liked Ghost Buggy too. He was probably my favorite. Just he's got the best one-liners probably out of all of them throughout those 5 episodes. And I don't know, it was funny him just being annoyed and then also having a crush on the other vehicle there and
You're gonna have to stop and
his
say that a little bit again
okay.
because it did the.
So yeah, Ghost Buggy was probably my favorite. I liked his just personality. I loved his one-liners. I think he had the best jokes out
Yep.
of anybody, and uh, the crush on the other vehicle there. I don't know. I just thought he was great. And Jake, yeah, um, he's obviously the leader. He's got the ghost sense, the twitching nose, kind of like Peter Parker's spider sense. Um, I thought he was fun, and just thinking back and talking with people over uh, podcasts and whatever online, and how much that they every time you talk about the Filmation, go, oh, that's the one with the gorilla, right? Yeah, I would have probably turned that off as a kid or whatever, just because there's no gorilla in the other Ghostbusters. But I don't know. Tracy I thought was going to be annoying to me, but it wasn't bad. Um, it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. To put it that way. And just the his mannerisms, the okie dokie, and his own little ape language. Um, it is very convenient that he's got whatever they need in his backpack. But he was okay. We'll put it that way. And all the other little gadgets and stuff in Ghost Command were just fun to me. I liked them a lot. Like I said, the least favorite is probably the airhead mummy character. Just didn't, I don't know, seem over the top stupid and just trying to crack his little jokes. I don't know. It didn't connect with me very well. Um, but for the most part, there's a lot of fun characters. Some may not be uh, that likable, but I didn't think there was any that were just horrible, either. I liked most of the villains, and like I said before, they're just fun and colorful. And yeah, some are takeoff of other characters, but that still seem to be their own like fresh spin. Well,
Right.
fresh for 1986. So, uh, like I said, the Jake, his knowledge of everything was a little much. It's kind of like an overall dislike with it, but um, for the most part, it was great, and I really liked the time travel. I thought the time
Mhm.
travel was just a fun element, and I'm going to have to go back and watch some more episodes, or when I'm looking for something to just catch an episode here or there. I need some '80s cartoons. I am going to go back and check some out. So, um, overall, I guess what was your? Did you have any other like likes or dislikes about the show
I'll be honest. I
overall?
I wasn't a fan of Tracy. I like that he had the gadget knowledge and building stuff, but I got really tired easily of the woogie dogie, no woogie dogie. Just that was just too. I wasn't expecting him to talk, obviously, but if he's walking around just like a regular adult, a human, I was hoping there'd be more to him than what he had, and it just that very little vocabulary, and
Mm-hmm.
that was just getting to me. Likes, man, I liked it all. I liked seeing Primeval and him, especially when he tried to say the name, just the hilarity of the Ghostbusters. I mean, that was comical to me. Um, Seeing him go, the circuitry, just he'd sizzle every time he get
Mm-hmm.
mad at
Get
or whatever.
red and yeah, they start like steaming and
I like the reuse of the stuff. I guess because I get it from because you're hand drawing that all. It's not computers like we have today.
Mhm.
Not that I know how animation works any better than on computers than on pencil, but I would think with the advent of all this animation software, it's easy. You build a character and tell it to go A to B, and you can
Mhm.
maneuver it far quicker than, okay, now I got to do this to make sure it flips and animates correctly. So I
Mhm.
get that. But to me, the whole animation was ahead of its time because you got to see them blink their eyes. You got to see, um, the Primeval's little stance that he does.
Yeah. Yeah, he saw that a lot.
Yes.
Uh
And then the little,
yeah.
um,
But
just,
yeah, like we said before though, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Filmation to think about, yes, they do have the shortcuts and maybe that is a criticism, but most of their shows pumped out all of these episodes, like 65 episodes of this show.
yep.
And we're here reviewing 5 of them, but we still kind of determine this as one of those shows that missed us, that was only on for a season, one season, but still somehow Filmation with their style and with reusing the footage in different ways managed to get 65 episodes out of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, when I think about Filmation, that's the most impressive thing, because a lot of these, like, even like Hanna-Barbera and some of those other shows that even you think of Pole Position, 13 episodes, and that was only meant to run on Saturday mornings. I get that, but this was a new concept to run in syndication. You're hitting the kids 5 days a week instead of one day a week on
Yep.
Saturday, and to get this many episodes out in the time frame that they did, I thought was just, man, it
Oh, yeah.
way ahead of its time.
I agree. And that's where, I liked it. I was up to, like I said, I think episode 20 or so,
Hmm.
and it was just impressive. I was really getting into the cartoon. I think I stopped because I'm running out of time to go to bed,
Yeah.
to work. Um, but it was great, and that's why we kind of end these episodes with a rating, and that's why I would say rediscover this. Don't leave this one in the past. So
Hmm.
I don't know how
Yeah.
you feel.
No, well, I kind of hinted at it, and you can probably guess by just our takes overall that, yeah, definitely go back and rediscover this one. Give it a chance. If you're a hardcore Ghostbusters fan, and I mean the films and the real Ghostbusters, that world, this is fun. This is a real
Mhm.
fun show. It is different. You're gonna get more than just the proton packs and the streams. You get all these fun little gadgets. You get a car that's still cool that can transform, and you got the time travel element as well in these shows. So there's a lot added to this that you don't get necessarily in the other Ghostbusters. I know there's some time travel and fun characters involved in the Real Ghostbusters series. I've gone back and watched some of those, so I know you get some of that element there in the character designs and all the monsters and stuff that come along, the ghosts. But you get that as well over here with the Filmation Ghostbusters, and it was fun. I thought it was a fun show, and like I said, I'm anxious. I am gonna keep watching the series and check out episodes from time to time. So this was fun, man. This was a good pick. I'm
Oh,
glad
yeah.
we
I
landed
can
on
find the list
this.
to see what next we are going to encounter. Actually, we
Yeah.
typically follow this afterwards because we have to do the research to see what we're going to talk about next.
Right. And I think we are up to a movie next, I think. Trying to
That sounds
remember.
right. Yeah, because we typically go, I think it's tune, movie, then a TV show, and then back to a tune. So yeah, we'll have
Yeah,
to look.
actually, I think we did TV first. That was our first episode, and then we did TV back around on episode 4, which was Street Hawk. And now we're cartoons. So now we're up to a movie. I think we're doing a movie next.
Okay.
So we'll go through our movie list. This should be an easier watch than watching multiple episodes. Still about probably the same time frame, hour and a half to 2 hours total. But we've got a long list there. Any you want us to go back and rediscover? Please, obviously, leave us the feedback at RD80s at Infamous WB over there on Twitter. That's the easiest way to find us. And we'd also love your ratings on the Rediscover the 80s podcast and any feedback you want to leave us. All the normal places on social media, Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, all those places. So this is fun, man. This is fun. I'm anxious to get back in this groove and start watching some more stuff.
Oh yes, and like Jason said, this has been a great time rediscovering a lot of classics to include the Ghostbusters, the Filmation Ghostbusters to be specific. And again, we welcome your comments, your feedbacks, your suggestions on our social media and rediscover the80s.com. And until next time, keep rediscovering.
Perfect. All right, we're out. Thanks everybody for watching this. If you're over there on YouTube, and like we said before, we try to get back in the groove of going over these different things, and it's been real fun, man. Like this one.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for dealing with my yawning. It's almost midnight for me, so I apologize. The Coke was not working as well as it should have.
All right. We'll catch y'all later, and thanks for watching us there on YouTube.